Hello, my name is Adam and I review things. I spent 20 minutes talking about the movie I'm going to review and realized I did not press the record button. I'm going to review the movie Das Boot. The movie Das Boot is from 1981 and it is about the lives of a German submarine crew. I found two things really interesting about the movie, and I found that the movie did one thing really, really well. So, the thing that the movie did really, really well was to show the atmosphere of life on this sub. So, I think even now, with modern subs, which are much, much bigger, it's still really confined space. So, I don't know if you can tell how big my room is right here, but this is probably like 40% of the space that they had on this sub, according to the film. So the sub crew was about 25 people, all in this room. Like, imagine that, imagine the stench. Like, because, they're gone to sea for like 3 months, I think. So imagine how that would smell after a while. Not very nice. And, you can kind of, like, you can't really, but in my imagination, I could smell the stench coming from the screen. So I think that it's really well done. And I think it's probably one of the best films that I've seen in a long time that shows the atmosphere of the place because I think other films, oh, the place, I mean the sub. Other films, they are maybe more focused on the acting or the story or the special effects or whatever. But this is really, they really put a lot of work in showing you what life on a German sub was like in the Second World War. And, they preface it by saying like something like 70% of sub crew members died during the Second World War. So you can see that this is like a very dangerous thing they're doing. So that's the thing that they did really, really well. And I was surprised by two things. One, kind of not that important, and the other one, more important. The thing that wasn't very important is that I was surprised how much influence this movie has had on Star Trek, actually because there was one movie, I think, Star Trek movie that came out before this movie, and then every other Star Trek movie came out after it. And so Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, is kind of like a little bit like this movie. Like they're searching for this Khan guy. And the the battles in Star Trek, especially in the Next Generation, they become much more like these submarine battles where maybe before you would see like these little models and you would see that first and then you would see inside the I don't know, the disc or wherever they are, the bridge, yeah. The bridge, you'd see that. And now the focus is more on what happens on the bridge, at least for Star Trek in the 80s and early 90s. So I was really, really surprised by that. And random interesting thing is the bridge is basically the place on the ship where they command. And on the sub, they call the little turret thing, that's the bridge. And he's like, oh, I'm going up to the bridge. And the bridge is like little tiny thing. So kind of funny. The other thing that they do really well, and I was surprised by, is that this is a German film about um, German sailors who were fighting a war for the Nazis. And some of these sailors are Nazis. Some of them are like really ideological Nazis. And it makes you really sympathetic to not to Nazi ideology, but to what those men went through. And I mentioned another movie. I reviewed another movie called 13th Fail, and I said that that movie failed because it didn't use the tricks of movie making to show its ideology. And I think this movie is successful because you forget that these people are Nazis. You want the best for them. Like the movie is about 3 hours long, and it doesn't really feel that way, honestly. The movie is about 3 hours long, and you want them to find a ship to sink it. And when they actually do sink some ships, they commit a war crime. And this is actually a really great scene because basically they're trying to find some merchant ships to sink because that was the whole point of U-boat warfare, was to cripple the war effort of the Allies and prevent material from going to Great Britain so it could be used to attack Germany. So they find this convoy, and how convoy warfare worked was basically all of the merchant ships would go together and they would be protected by ships that were designed to destroy subs. So in this instance, those protecting vessels were gone somewhere and they were doing something else. And so the U-boat finds this convoy and they're like really, really happy. And like you're happy as a viewer that they found it. And they shoot off four torpedoes, and then they get spotted by a destroyer, so they sink and they leave the scene of the crime. And it's really, so two things are really well done, which really shows the dichotomy of this type of warfare. So they're under the ocean, they're submerged, and they're listening to the ship sinking. And they're the one guy who, because they had like this officer or I don't know, sailor who's like listening, basically like a radio operator, but more not listening to the radio, but listening to the sounds of the ocean. And he's like, okay, so the bulkhead is breaking now, the ship is sinking. And you can just see like they're thinking like, oh my God, so many people, we just killed so many people on those ships. And so they evade the destroyer, and then they come up and they see that the ships are on fire. They haven't, one ship is on fire. It hasn't sunk yet, and there's still people on it. And the people are swimming to the sub. So basically, it was a rule of naval, it's still a rule of naval warfare. If you sink the enemy ship, you have the duty to rescue the sailors who, who are on the ocean, because it's not like, for example, if you blow up a tank and people get out of the tank and they're shooting at you, there's no way the sailors who are floating on the ocean are a threat to you at that moment. So anyway, the sailors are yelling help in English and they're swimming towards the sub. And the captain of the sub gives the command to back away and to shoot the last torpedo in the ship to make sure that it's sunk. And you can see, like, he didn't really hesitate to make that decision. And that is a war crime, right? So the movie shows you why, like, the movie spends the entirety of its runtime up to that point making you wish that they had succeeded in their mission, and because they really want to succeed in their mission. And when they do, and when they show you what their mission actually is, then you're like, and it's not in like a moralizing way or anything. They like back away and they shoot the ship, and it's gonna sink, and all of these men are gonna die. And like immediately when the captain makes that decision, the other people on board, they're not like, oh no, we have to stop and rescue them. They're like, oh, why didn't they get rescued by the English? They had like 5 hours or whatever, And there are a few men who are on the bridge who are like, crying because they just killed like, I don't know, 100 people or something like that. So, yeah, it's a really good movie in the sense that it's good filmmaking. And you feel sympathetic to those men because of the suffering that they have endured. But it's also good because it raises the question in your mind of the suffering that they have caused to people. And the reason they're suffering so much is because the Allies figured out how to stop the suffering that they were inflicting upon people, right? Because a lot of these people like were just sailors doing their job, sailing from America to England, right? And if a you know, I'm sure most sailors, British and American sailors at the time, weren't particularly fond of Nazis or something, but it was their job, right? So I don't think anybody should be murdered in the middle of the ocean for doing their job. I don't think that's a um, I don't think that's a unique or very uh, forward thinking take. So yeah, the movie is very, very good. I'd give it like 9 out of 10. But as I said, I don't think I've watched very many other submarine movies, but so far this is the best submarine movie that I've ever seen. If you have a recommendation for a good submarine movie, put it in the comments below and I'll check it out. If you like this review series that I do, if you like what I do, there's three ways you can support me. One, you can click the like button and I will, uh, appreciate that. You can also leave a comment. That also really, really helps the the algorithm check out that people like this stuff. And you can also subscribe to the channel because my goal is to have 150 subscribers by the end of January. And I have currently 120, which is really, really great. So I think that we'll be able to do that. Oh yeah, four ways. Jeez, 4 ways. The last way is that uh, you can support me by joining my Patreon, and the details are on the Patreon, so I'll put the link in the description. Bye bye.